Has Jeffrey Springs been the ace the A's have been looking for all along?
You are Locked On A's, your daily podcast on the Athletics, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
This is Locked On A's. I am Kyle Morrison. Appreciate all of you joining us here today on what is a very celebratory day today for A's fans, because the A's took 2 out of 3 from the Yankees, and it's not every year that we get a chance to say that, especially when we look at the A's of recent vintage. Once again, I'm Kyle Morrison. The A's now improved to 5-7 on the season with today's win. It was a 1-0 win, and folks, if you had bet me about whether the A's were going to win one of these games this series 1-0, I would have lost that bet, because I would have taken the no answer on that one. In fact, if you would have bet me the A's would have won 2 straight games against the Yankees, scoring a total of 4 runs, I would have also taken no on that one. But the fact of the matter is that in this series, the A's offense did not wake up. They still are having a hard time waking up, which is hard to believe considering the talent the A's have. But it's been the pitching. Who would have thought, particularly the starting pitching, that has come through and pulled through, especially over these last 2 days. And you could really argue throughout the entire series, with Aaron Civale pitching well, Luis Severino pitching well. But the man who wound up them all was Jeffrey Springs. And Jeffrey Springs, you see it there on my little preview, has really set himself up as a very, very early Cy Young candidate in the American League. And he's got the great games against great teams to really show it. He's dominated the Yankees. He's pitched well against the Astros. And he's even pitched well against the Toronto Blue Jays, which started off this whole run of extremely good starting pitching for Jeffrey Springs. So we look at Jeffrey Springs. His ERA is now down to 1.47. Today he pitched a 1-hitter. He went 7 innings, and honestly probably could have gone back out there for the 8th. He was at 93 pitches, so he was kind of around that kind of area, but utterly dominant was Jeffrey Springs. Did not give up his first hit until the 7th inning, when Ben Rice was finally able to get a single against Springs with 1 out. And then what I thought was really key is that he was able to pitch out of trouble through the rest of that inning to get out of the inning, including getting a fly out from Austin Wells to end that inning with runners at 2nd and 3rd. And so Jeffrey Springs, not only did he get into the 7th with a no-hitter, he actually then faced some trouble really for the first time in the game in that 7th inning. And we hear it all the time, pitchers, when they don't have to go into the stretch, when they're not in a stressful situation for a very long time in a game, it can be kind of a shock when they have to when they have to face a stressful situation. That's when they haven't had to face one for most of the game, just because you're in such a rhythm as a starting pitcher. Maybe you haven't had to pitch out of the stretch all that much. And for Jeffrey Springs, his stretch and his windup are 2 very different things. And so the fact that he was able to give up that hit, it wasn't easy, but he was able to calm down and get through the inning scoreless, I think was a really, really big deal. And I can understand why Mark Kotsay took him out after that 7th inning, although I think he could have gone to the 8th if he really wanted to. And then the bullpen backed up Jeffrey Springs really, really well. Justin Sterner and Hogan Harris. Later in the show, I'm going to tell you why I think Hogan Harris should be the closer for this A's team going forward. I think he's earned the job, and I think he deserves to be in that spot, and what that would mean as far as roster maneuvers. And then after that, we're going to talk a little bit about the Mets, the next New York team the A's get the honor of facing. But first, more on this game, and we're going to talk more and more about Jeffrey Springs. I was able to pull up Baseball Savant, which means that I'm digging deep. Today, Jeffrey Springs, of his 93 pitches, 60 of them were strikes, which is incredible efficiency. And what I love about Jeffrey Springs is he mostly throws the fastball. And, we live in an era where velocity is considered, the big thing. Velocity is the gospel in Major League Baseball these days. But Jeffrey Springs is right now leading a starting pitching rotation where 3 of the guys out of the 5 guys in the starting pitching rotation throw primarily fastballs, but do not throw at high velocity. And Jeffrey Springs today, his average velocity on the fastball was 91.2, which is actually lower than his average this year at 91.4. A little bit lower, but still, the point being he wasn't throwing hard, and he wasn't really throwing it, to try to throw it by guys, but he was still effective nonetheless. And the reason that he was so effective is because of his location. Jeffrey Springs used the fastball exactly where he wanted to use it. And it may be a little counterintuitive to think about this, but Springs is actually throwing the fastball at the higher plane of the zone. He's got a very high delivery from that left-handed side, and he was kind of throwing it towards the high part of the zone, trying to set up some of his breaking pitches, which were primarily at the lower part of the zone. Jeffrey Springs, when he's at his best, is able to really move that slider and that changeup off the same plane in the same arm angle, and do so in a way that really fools the hitters because the fastball is coming straight out of that arm angle, and then he's able to throw that slider and he's able to throw that changeup kind of off of it on the same plane. And so for a hitter, you're seeing the pitch coming at you from that same arm angle as the fastball, and it should be coming towards the higher part of the zone, and then it just drops off the table, whether it be a slider or whether it be a changeup. And you look at his pitch map today, he threw almost all of his sliders in the lower third of the zone. A few kind of hung up, and those were dangerous pitches. And then almost all of his changeups were either low in the zone or actually kind of inside, especially to left-handed hitters, and also outside to right-handed hitters. And so what you see there is Jeffrey Springs today did a phenomenal job of putting the fastball where he wanted it, which, again, counterintuitively was kind of at the higher part of the zone. And then he was able to kind of spot it on the inside and outside parts of the plate as well, and then throwing the slider and the changeup off of it. And the thing that I love about Jeffrey Springs, I mean, I already told you a lot of things that I love about him, but the thing that I really, really love about him is the fact that he is a pitcher. And I know that may seem like, oh, yeah, of course he's a pitcher. He's getting paid to pitch. There are so many guys in big league baseball, so many starting pitchers in big league baseball, by the way, who have no idea how to pitch. They're just going up there with nasty stuff, and nasty stuff is great. Nasty stuff can forgive a lot of sins. But at the end of the day, if you want to be great in this league, you got to be able to locate. And Jeffrey Springs is a guy who, unfortunately for him, was not blessed with a great fastball. He was blessed with a fastball that, in order to control it, he has to kind of sit in the lower 90s. But what he does have when he's on is elite command and elite touch. You know, you hear stories about Greg Maddux and how he would, and Greg Maddux is another guy who didn't really throw that hard. He was high 80s, low 90s. Granted, different era, but still, you hear stories about how he would throw the fastball on the outside part of the plate and progressively, by inches, slowly but surely, inch his way further out of the right-handed part of the right side of the strike zone, or the far side of the strike zone. And umpires would continue to call that pitch for a strike because subconsciously they didn't really notice the subtle movement going off the plate. And I'm not saying that Jeffrey Springs is Greg Maddux by any means, but kind of the same train of thought, right? Jeffrey Springs is successful when he is able to trick you with different movements in different locations, and when he's able to kind of get the sting out of your at-bat. And don't think for 1 second that Jeffrey Springs, the way he pitches, means that he can't strike anyone out. Now, he's not going to be striking out the same amount of guys as Paul Skeens is by any means. But today, Jeffrey Springs still struck out 6 Yankees hitters. And we saw Aaron Savali the other day also be able to strike out quite a few Yankees. Another guy who kind of does the same thing, is able to locate the fastball and then throw off-speed pitches off of it. And what it really shows to me is that you can be successful in this league with elite command, even if you don't throw the ball really hard. And Jeffrey Springs is an incredible example of that. And right now, Jeffrey Springs is one of the best pitchers in the American League. He's sitting at a 1.47 ERA. And when the A's put Jeffrey Springs out there, they really are expecting that it's win day. And that is something that is so nice, especially for an A's team that, you know, they really haven't had a prototypical ace for a very, very long time. Jeffrey Springs right now, where he sits in ERA, is currently 12th in Major League Baseball. Some guys that are ahead of him: Max Fried at 1.35, Ronaldo Lopez at 1.15. And then you actually have some relievers that are up there as well. And I really don't like to count the relievers kind of on the same plane as these guys. Taj Bradley's having a great year for the Twins. Sandy Alcantara, 0.74. These are the guys, Shohei Ohtani, who is still yet to give up a run. That guy's unbelievable. These are the guys that Jeffrey Springs is in the league of. And not only that, but Jeffrey Springs went into Yankee Stadium against one of the elite lineups in Major League Baseball and shut him down, pitching the way he pitches. And I am so excited to see what Jeffrey Springs is able to do when he comes back home against Texas and makes a start back on his home mound against the Rangers. But look, the lineup continues to be a problem. But as long as you got guys like Jeffrey Springs pitching the way that he's pitching right now, the A's are going to have a chance. With that being said, if the A's really do want to consistently win, I've said it many times in the show, I will say it again, they need the pitching. Sorry, they need the lineup to really start coming through. And just one quick look at some numbers from the lineup before we move on to our next segment. Again, the A's, the only run they scored came in the 7th inning. So this was a nothing game for a very long time. The A's came very close to wasting his performance from Jeffrey Springs. And Tyler Soderstrom was the guy who came up with the RBI single that scored Max Muncy. And so Soderstrom coming up with a big hit, and good that he came up with the hit in the right time. But Jacob Wilson goes 1 for 4 again. Kurtz is starting to get it going. He had 2 hits in the game against the Yankees on Wednesday, picks up another 2 hits against the Yankees yesterday on Thursday. Brent Rooker had to leave with an injury. We're going to hope that everything's okay with Brent. That would be a huge blow to a lineup that is already struggling here today. I mean, already struggling here this season, and we have yet to hear a concrete answer on whether Brent Rooker will be able to play against New York here today. He had flank discomfort. That was the reason that Brent Rooker had to leave. Butler took over for him. He went 1 for 3. Ibanez, I think maybe some of the Ibanez magic has run out. He's 0 for 3. He went 0 for 3. Max Muncy, 2 for 4. He continues to have a great season. 319 batting average. Soderstrom came up with a big hit. He's 1 for 4. But again, these averages right now, Wilson 196, Kurtz 220, Rooker 146, Ibanez 167, Muncy 319. He's an exception. Soderstrom 217. These are not good averages. Denzel Clark 148. And so the lineup is completely out of whack. But the fact that they've been able to win 4 of their last 6, considering that, the fact that they were able to win 2 straight games in Yankee Stadium, scoring a total of 4 runs, that's huge, and that's pretty much free money. That's like stealing 2 wins, really, to be honest with you. So a great series win for the A's. Nothing but good feelings for A's fans right now. But, folks, there's a man in the A's bullpen who deserves a little bit more credit right now than he's getting, and I think he should be promoted to the closer spot, and that's Hogan Harris, and we're going to talk about that after this break. It's tax time. For a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient, sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers and emailing back and forth, wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar you deserve while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head to TurboTax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment. So Hogan Harris today picked up the save for the A's, and if you've been tuning into the show, I have been very critical of Mark Kotsay and some of his bullpen usage, particularly after that Game 1 loss to the Yankees that the A's had to suffer on Tuesday. And it's really funny because I remember last year when I was working for the A's and I had the chance to hang out with Cody Elias and Chris Townsend and Michael Barabalt and Ray Jensen, all those guys, still great guys. Hope they're doing well up in Sacramento with the A's. I remember when Hogan Harris came out for a save situation late last year. This was after the Mason Miller trade. And we were all kind of laughing about the fact that Hogan Harris was getting a save opportunity. And why wouldn't we? I mean, Hogan Harris, going back early in his A's career, was kind of a fringe starting pitcher, someone who struggled, kind of had to be yanked in and out of the starting rotation, was a quadruple A guy going up and down, up and down. And it was really only last year that he really started to become a full-time reliever. And at the time, we were laughing like, Hogan Harris, the closer. I'm not laughing anymore. And in fact, I think Hogan Harris should be the closer for this team. And there's a few reasons why. I know I'm going to contradict myself here, but I think it's a little different for relievers than starters. His velocity is up. He's throwing about 97 miles an hour. Folks, if you would have told any A's fan 2-3 years ago that Hogan Harris was going to be throwing 97 miles an hour, I doubt they would believe you. And this has been a consistent thing for Hogan Harris. He has consistently worked on his velocity over the last few years and over the last few off seasons to try to get himself up into that higher range of velocity in Major League Baseball. Today, Hogan Harris threw one of the 5 hardest pitches of the game. for the A's, period, for both teams, but for the A's, obviously, throwing 97.1 miles an hour. So obviously, this is a guy who has confidence in his fastball. And the reason I know he has confidence in his fastball is because today he threw almost entirely fastballs, and he was still able to get through that ninth inning with the save, and he looked really, really good doing it. And you take a look at Hogan Harris recently. You take a look at his 2025 season and his ERA at the end of that year. He had a 2.03 ERA in September, a 0.00 ERA in August. Over 18 outings with the A's and over 23 and a third innings pitched over the last 2 months of last season. He struck out 20, and he gave up a grand total of 3 runs. Along with that, he gave up a grand total of 11 hits. He gave up a grand total of 11 hits in those performances. And he walked 8. Those are pretty darn good numbers. And not only that, there's an it factor with Hogan Harris. And, again, it's funny to be saying this considering kind of what Hogan Harris's reputation was before last season, which again is kind of as that fringe starting rotation guy. But the thing about Hogan Harris that is really apparent when he's out there on the mound is that this dude's a pit bull, man. He goes out there and he is trying to take no prisoners. Like, he goes out there and he is trying to, dominate you. And you can really tell that when he goes out into a situation, he's not scared. And that is something that is so key for a closer, to not be scared of the moment. This is a very easygoing Louisiana guy. When you talk to him, I've had the chance and the pleasure to talk to Hogan Harris before. When you talk to him, it is just a delight. He is just funny. He's whimsical. He's awesome. But when he goes out on that mound, you can tell a different Hogan Harris comes out. And particularly when it comes to save situations, I think that is extremely, extremely important. And to kind of go deeper into Hogan Harris's outing here today, he threw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 fastballs here today. And he threw 3 curveballs and 1 slider. This is a guy who, for most of his career, was throwing low, mid-90s. And right now, throwing 97. Again, it's good. I think it puts him in the realm of being a closer. But that's not by any means, phenomenal velocity for, what a lot of these major league pitchers see. After all, Mason Miller, may his A's days rest in peace, is with the Padres right now throwing consistently 102, 103. And he's kind of the model as far as closers are concerned right now because of how he's dominating for the Padres. But Hogan Harris, he doesn't care. He went out there and he was chucking fastballs and he was like, here, hit it. And he was chucking fastballs in the zone. He threw, of the 10 fastballs he threw, 4 of them were in the strike zone. 8 of them were at the higher part of the strike zone here today. And so, again, this is a guy with a lot of confidence. He believes when he's out there that he can get you out. And that's exactly what he's doing. And right now, early on in the season, 9 innings pitch. He's got a 3.00 ERA. He's given up a few too many base runners, but he's getting the job done. Now, the thing that's really going to be interesting is the A's don't have many left-handed pitchers down in that bullpen. In fact, I believe Hogan Harris is the only left-handed pitcher in the bullpen. So if you're going to make Hogan Harris the closer, you're going to have to call up another lefty, which I think is, something that, do the A's have a guy down in the bullpen as a lefty who they really, really like? Down in AAA as a lefty who they really, really like, who they can call up and feel confident can get lefties out at the big league level? I don't know. Now, I've said before, I think that the A's do need to go out and get more relief pitching, period. So maybe that's a situation where they can go down there and get a left-handed guy or go out and get a left-handed guy in free agency. Or even off the waivers or in a trade that can help them in this situation and allow Hogan Harris to kind of slot into that closer's role. Yeah, besides Hogan Harris, the only lefties the A's have on their pitching staff right now are Jacob Lopez and Jeffrey Springs, who we obviously talked about earlier. And those are starting pitchers. So if Hogan Harris is going to become the closer, they are going to have to probably call up another lefty just for some of those mid-inning situations where you need a lefty to kind of get through a spot. And of course, some of the really kind of new school baseball guys, the sabermetrics guys would tell you, well, that's why you don't have a set closer. So you can use Hogan Harris in whatever given situation you need to. and you can throw him in the seventh. There's a big time situation where you have lefties, and then you can give the ball to someone else as a closer. Again, I'm not buying into that. I really do think that it gives a team a lot of confidence, and it solidifies a team a lot to know who's in what role. And what the A's did today with what the A's did yesterday with Justin Sterner as the setup man and Hogan Harris as the closer, I think that's perfect. And I think that if they were to use that formula over and over again, go Sterner and then give it to Harris, I think the A's would win a lot of games because Justin Sterner's got a lot of talent. I really like him. I liked him last year. He had one blip on the radar where he had a bad month. I think it was late May into June when everyone on the A's was having a bad month. Remember, that was when they went on their 1-20 run. And so besides that, Justin Sterner has been phenomenal as a member of the Athletics. I love him in that setup spot, and I love Hogan Harris in that closer spot. Again, pitbull mentality, that fastball starting to get up into the high 90s, and he's just not scared of the moment, and I think those things are exactly what you need out of a closer. And then go out and get a left-handed pitcher that you can put in that bullpen, or see if there's someone in the minor leagues that you really like as kind of that left-handed reliever option that you can call up and then put in the bullpen so you have another lefty besides Hogan Harris. And honestly, like I've said earlier on this show, I wouldn't mind if the A's just went out and got a bunch of guys to solidify that bullpen. Now, obviously, it's still April, so there's probably a little bit of a ways before the A's start really thinking about making trades. But when they do, I think that the bullpen right now is the number one need for this team, particularly because I think the lineup is going to heat up and play a lot better, and because the starting rotation actually hasn't been bad as of late. With that said, I would not be mad if the A's went out and got another starting pitcher as well. All right, let's take another break. And on the flip side, we are going to talk about the Mets, preview that series, and then we'll take you all the way home. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Sponsored Jobs. Indeed, Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's the stat that says it all. In the minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? That is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. So the A's coming up with a series against the Mets, so they're just going to go across town in New York. By the way, talk about a wonderful trip. If you were smart enough to book the New York trip, go to a game at Yankee Stadium, and then go to a game at Citi Field, I applaud you. That is a goal of mine to try to hit both. I've been to Citi Field before, not yet Yankee Stadium, but to hit both and spend a week in New York, wonderful. And I hope anyone who's enjoying that trip, A, realizes they're a genius, and B, is having a great time. The Mets are a very interesting team, as they are every year. I don't think there's a single year where the Mets aren't at least interesting, whether it's for good reasons or for bad reasons. They will come into this series against the A's at 7-6, and their season has really been up and down. And I think a lot of Mets fans are trying to figure out exactly if this team is good or not. They just dropped 2 out of 3 to the Arizona Diamondbacks, who I think most people agree are going to be a good team this year, just in a very tough division. Before that, they took 3 out of 4 from the San Francisco Giants, who I don't think anyone knows if they're going to be a good team or not. And then before that, they played the St. Louis Cardinals, and they actually lost 2 out of 3 to them. And that was after taking 2 out of 3 from the Pittsburgh Pirates. So you can kind of see there, it's been a very uneven season so far for the New York Mets. Juan Soto's hurt. We don't know when he's going to come back. He has a calf injury. You know, optimistic people are thinking he could come back in a couple of weeks, but those calf injuries have a tendency to linger. And much like the A's, this is a lineup just lined up with a lot of big names. While the A's are kind of more younger big names, the Mets have a lot of veteran guys. And they made a lot of moves this offseason to try to solidify their lineup. One of those moves is paying off right now. Luis Robert looks like a new man. He's hitting .333 with 2 home runs and 7 RBIs. Brett Beatty is their second best hitter average-wise at .273. But there's a lot of guys on this team who are really underperforming right now. Bo Bichette's only hitting .228. Marcus Semien, I didn't really like that move when the Mets made it. I kind of feel like Semien's best years are behind him, unfortunately. With that being said, former A and a Berkeley guy, so I'm a big fan of Semien. Francisco Lindor has almost forgot how to play baseball this year. I mean, he has made base running blunders, he's made defensive blunders, and he's only hitting .157. And again, Juan Soto's on the IL. The thing about this Mets team that's still really dangerous, though, is their pitching. They have a very, very good pitching rotation. And the guys that the A's are going to face off against in this series, Clay Holmes, of course, who is the former reliever for the Yankees, who is now a starter for the Mets. And he's had a great start to the year, 1.42 ERA in a couple of outings. And then the A's are going to have to play against the forkball of Kodai Senga. What is it they call it? They call it the super splitter or the forkball or whatever, what have you. And Kodai Senga, when he's on, is incredible. He's got 16 strikeouts already in just 2 outings. After that, for the A's, again, and it's not going to get any easier against this Mets rotation. After that, they have to face Freddie Peralta, who has been one of the best pitchers in the National League for the better part of the last decade. He came over from the Brewers, big get by the Mets this year. So 3 very tough pitchers, Holmes, Senga, and Peralta. Again, this is the final part of kind of this early season gauntlet for the A's. And the A's are going to be tested because the Mets are going to get the backside of this A's rotation. JT Ginn is going to get the ball tomorrow for the A's. He started the year off in the bullpen. Buckle your seatbelts, folks. I have no idea what we're going to see out of him as a starter here in 2026. After that, the Mets are going to get Jacob Lopez, who has not had a very good start to the season. And then Savali is going to finish things off on Sunday. Much like the Yankees series, I think that it's very important that the A's find a way to win one of these first 2 games. Just find a way to win one of these first 2 games and then take your chances in game 3. JT again, it's kind of a crapshoot. What is he going to look like? What is he going to do? The heck if I know. And the lineup's really got to get going, particularly against this very good pitching staff. I really think that despite the records, the Mets might end up being a tougher matchup for the A's than the Yankees, just because the A's are getting kind of the best part of their rotation here with Holmes, with Senga, and then having to finish off against Freddie Peralta. Whereas with the Yankees, they kind of got the underbelly of that rotation. They only had to go against Schlittler, and then after that, they didn't have to face some of the bigger arms for the Yankees in the rotation. We'll talk about this 3-game series against the Mets next week after the weekend. All of you have a great weekend. Enjoy the games, and let's hope the A's get another series win here against the Mets.